Every time Bitcoin repeats this pattern, it does the same exact move, which surprises everybody. The market is on fire and people are freaking out. There's a lot of uncertainty and you have a lot of questions about what is going on in the market. What if I told you Bitcoin is repeating the same exact pattern that it did last cycle? In fact, if this pattern continues to repeat, what happens next could be absolutely catastrophic. We've got breaking news happening in the RSI in the middle of our screen. We have really bad news on the bottom of our screen, stochastic RSI, and we have even worse news up ahead in our red box. The pattern from the top of 2021 is repeating right before your eyes. 2021 marked incredibly strong bearish divergence, 300 days apart, with the RSI making a pivot high here and a lower high here, while price did the opposite. Price made a high and a higher high, while the indicator made a high and a lower high. 300 days apart. Remember that number, because what I have to share about that number is not good news. But what happened in this cycle? Well, 300 days apart, we had a cycle high here and a lower high in our RSI, while price made a high and a higher high. We did the exact same pattern. And if this thing continues, the next move that's on the calendar could be absolutely horrific. If you think this last week was bad, wait till you see what the next move could do, because this pattern is repeating pound for pound, move for move, and it's been doing that for over a year, right below your nose. Until now, I'm going to tell you what this pattern is, how to identify it, and the next move that it has on its agenda. But there is one thing that could save the day for Bitcoin. We gave a couple rules that Bitcoin had to follow. How is that going now? We're going to give the latest and greatest on the things that Bitcoin could potentially do to save the day. Or has Bitcoin failed all of those and it's going to be a bloodbath? We will give the latest and greatest on, is there any chance for Bitcoin to save the day? And if so, how? And more importantly, how likely is that to play out? All of that and more. Let's get it. There's a ton of uncertainty in the market and you have a lot of questions, so I'm going to make an incredible bonus video. Comment right now what you want me to cover. I'm going to get in the lab. Next week, I'll release it. It's going to go out to all of my students. Shout out to my students and everyone who's on the wait list for my new exit plan masterclass. So if you're not a student and you want this bonus video, easy. Go to my website right now, cryptocrewuniversity.com. Join the wait list, unlock it for free, sent out next week. Watch your inbox. This is going to be an explosive video that will help you so much. So here we are, Bitcoin US dollar index, and today we're on the weekly chart. What we have on our chart are three distinct categories. We've got price action above, we have the RSI in the middle of our screen, and the stochastic RSI at the bottom. All three have very critical breaking news pieces coming in each one of them, but we will start with price action. When we dig into the price action, what we can see is the market cycle top from 2021 played out in a very specific pattern. It's also a pattern that Bitcoin has done in other past cycles as well, not just the 2021 top. In fact, Bitcoin has now had 3 times where a market cycle top was identified with bearish divergence at the absolute pinnacle top of the market. The last time we did it was 2021, so we will dig into 2021. What you have on your chart here is a circle corresponding with the RSI touch points. Now, the RSI is overbought, oversold. It goes from a range of 0 up to 100. And essentially what happens near market cycle tops is there's some sort of blow off in the RSI where the RSI goes so high, it's almost unbelievable. And when you dig back and look at the history, it's when Bitcoin did that in March 2024. I remember sitting in the chair here and I remember warning people about how hot the RSI was, right? Because we had done the same thing in 2021. And again, these hot cycles do not happen at the Pinnacle market cycle top, but it's a sign that we don't have long left until this whole thing could be over. And that's what I said when we got here, because Bitcoin was so high and so overbought, meaning all of the humans were jumping into Bitcoin and buying around the worst times. And when you zoom out and you look at how many times in history we had been that time, had that high or higher, it wasn't many. We can count them on our hands, right? So we were in a situation where we said, okay, we are really overextended. We were that overextended before, right here in 2021 when Bitcoin was at about 34,000. Yes, Bitcoin rose from 34,000, but this just signaled to the market that it wasn't long until the top was in. That's what this signal was, because we were so overbought, the market had to flip. There had to be some trouble. There had to be some turmoil in the midst of the bull market, and the market was out of balance. So we had a little bit of a rise in price followed by a huge crash in price. And you can see that RSI formed this formation here, which we later covered for the extent of the bear market. Following this until we had bullish divergence at the bottom of the market and we broke through this pent-up aggression, which we covered this chart pound for pound, move for move, for the past few years. This chart has helped us stay level-headed in a time of uncertainty. This chart helped us see the light and understand what the market was doing. Because if you don't know our channel and you're new here, first of all, welcome in. But second of all, you better get comfortable, because this chart right here is going to help you so much in the rest of your time in crypto to stay level-headed. In fact, we used this chart back about 9 months ago. About 9 months ago was a very critical point in the market. The market was really waiting for a stochastic RSI cross. We were around 50,000. There was a lot of uncertainty. And I came on and I said, look, we're waiting for a stochastic RSI cross. It's likely that that cross will bring us to an all-time high. However, it's likely that when we get there, we are going to have been met with bearish divergence. In that video, this is what I had to say. Roll the clip. And the only thing that's going to save the day is the weekly stochastic RSI. That has the capability to lead Bitcoin to a new all-time high. The problem is, once we get to a new all-time high, we're going to need to avoid ridiculously strong bearish divergence. That means the weekly RSI has to make a higher high, higher than 88, something that it's only done a few times in the history of Bitcoin. So it's wild to sit here and say, okay, we covered that. We gave a warning 9 months ago that we could definitely go to an all-time high, but if we get there, it's highly likely we're going to have bearish divergence, and bearish divergence typically marks market cycle tops, especially for Bitcoin. It's done that many times. In fact, it did it in the last cycle. And then it played out. And we had this all-time high, and I remember being over 100,000. And I remember having this heart-to-heart with you in our community saying, okay, remember that thing we talked about 9 months ago, that bearish divergence thing? Yeah. We had the stochastic RSI cross. Yes, it brought us to an all-time high. And yes, we have yet to get a higher high. We have bearish divergence, plain and simple. But nobody wanted to hear it because we were over 100K. And then we printed this candle right here. I don't know if you remember me covering this one, the shooting star. We made a pretty big fuss about this one because shooting star candles are pretty rare, and they're found typically at the tops of rallies, and they typically mean a trend reversal. We even went as far as to follow the next candle. And I remember being over 100,000 because that next candle in January, the market was hot. And I said, okay, just pump the brakes, because if this candle doesn't make a new all-time high and close above there, that shooting star is going to play out. And everyone's like, yeah, but we're going to the moon. Everybody says we're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. We're over 100,000. You know, Steve must be Delusional, he's been right a lot, but there's no way. The shooting star, come on. One wrong move this cycle could cost you everything. My new exit plan masterclass is going to be the most important thing I have ever built, and I've never ever released an exit plan strategy before. This will be the first. You're going to be able to walk away with a clear and confident plan of exactly when and how to exit with 0 second guessing. The early bird pre-sale is going to launch April 21st. Mark your calendars because there's going to be limited seats and they are going to go fast. I can't wait. This is going to be incredible. And then we didn't close above the shooting star, meaning we validated the shooting star. And at the same time, we had bearish divergence. And I know it was hard to believe and it didn't sound pretty, but this is how it's played out, which is leading us to right here. Right now, Bitcoin is in this red box. That's not up for debate. In fact, we talked many weeks ago when we first entered the red box, and I showed you the last red box. And so from a handful of weeks ago, when we looked at this, and here we are a bunch of candles later, we've only just done more of exactly what we did in 2021 to a T. For example, the stochastic RSI, bottom of our screen, our momentum. We haven't had an official cross. This is why, as disciplined traders, on the weekly chart, with whatever your favorite coin is, you will have about 1 to 2 weekly crosses per year. It's not a lot. And when they happen, it's time to buy. But as I said, as a disciplined trader, you want to wait for the fast line and the slow line to get above the 20 level. Until then, it doesn't become a real signal. And as a disciplined trader, you would have not have taken this trade because we weren't above the 20. And we've had a fake out since then, which means as a disciplined trader, you didn't even care about the fake out because it didn't even register in your mind because we never went above the 20, which would have saved you a lot of losses. Which is why, as a disciplined trader, we're focused on the technique. We're focused on the learning and the lesson that you can take this simple lesson, put it in your pocket, and use it for the rest of your life. And every time that comes up, you're going to be like, yes, this is what Steve was talking about. Now I get it. This simple thing can help me make better decisions, keep me more level-headed when there's a lot of uncertainty in the market and everyone's freaking out. You're like, well, duh, we had a fake out stochastic RSI cross and it didn't even confirm. Like, big whoop. We're supposed to have no momentum. We still have no momentum. We started having no momentum almost 2 months ago when we came down here, and we've been down there since. So of course there's further downside action. There's no momentum. So to somebody who understands this simple technique, it becomes obvious. And there's a lot of emotional roller coasters in crypto like there are for everybody else because you use these techniques to your advantage. Here's some more techniques. When you look at the market and you understand that we lost our momentum a couple months ago and we've been down here for a prolonged period of time, I just want you to take a step back for a moment, shall we? Look at the whole bull market. The whole bull market is not 1 month old or 2 months old or 3. It's been a couple of years. We entered a bull market in January of 2023, right? When we entered that, look at how much time we've spent with no momentum. This is a wild trick that I guarantee you've never looked at until now. This trick can help you tremendously too. Just take a look, right? We've been in a bull market for multiple years. Look at how much time our momentum has been this low. If you look at the whole bull market, it becomes abundantly clear. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't need to be a doctor. Just look at that and you can say, wow, right now is clearly the longest that we spent with no momentum. What kind of a sign do you think that is? After having bearish divergence, after falling into the red box, after doing exactly what we did in the last one, after printing a shooting star. I just want to state the obvious because we talked 9 months ago. I warned this bearish divergence has played out. We've done exactly the pattern since then. And, it's still hard to swallow. So let's get further into it. We're inside of this red box. We just broke this key market structure in the RSI. Am I concerned about this break? Now, I gave you a couple ways weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago about how Bitcoin could save the day. And a couple of them were like, okay, Bitcoin has to stay above 70K. Now, I want to show you a clear reason why. 70K is our prior market cycle top and huge structure for this market cycle that we're in right now. So from a technical standpoint, looking at the chart, any break, any close below 70K is the nail in the coffin for Bitcoin. There's no more evidence to suggest otherwise. That would be the nail in the coffin. Structurally, you give this chart to anybody in the world who's really good with charts and they like structure, they understand it, and they know its significance, 70K, 68K, that's the number. Any close below that, it's a done deal, right? So that is one thing that we gave. Another thing we gave is Bitcoin cannot break this market structure. Why? This market structure right here with our red arrow right here, this has been our market structure for the entire bull run, meaning that 2 years we just talked about, we have held above this market structure on the weekly chart at about 44. And if you look at every market structure and every cycle, that 44 has been a key level, and we have held it as support for multiple years, and we've just broken it. The good news is we haven't closed below there yet, right? So with this recent downfall after the weekly close, we've had this fall in the RSI, which I'm not as concerned with yet because we haven't closed below here. In other words, the earliest we can close below here would be this coming Sunday, 11:59 p.m. UTC time. If at that time Bitcoin is below here, that's pretty strong evidence, okay? So keep an eye on that. But I mentioned this red box. So we're inside of this red box and we are repeating the pattern. Well, what's the pattern? Well, we have a high and a higher high in price 300 days apart, which marked the absolute market cycle top. And with the RSI, we had a high and a lower high. And right in between here, we had what's called our anomaly, where price in a bull market typically doesn't go below this green line. Well, it did right in between our two data points, which we did the exact same thing in this market cycle. We're 300 days apart in the red, and this green is 150 days right in between the two reds. Not good. And we've done the same moves while we're in the green. Just take a look at the RSI. The RSI was waiting for a stochastic RSI cross, and that cross brought us to our all-time high. Same thing. Our green box was here. We were waiting for a stochastic RSI cross. That's what I talked about 9 months ago. That's the exact cross we were waiting for. And then we just repeated the same exact thing. We had our top. That's exactly what we did. Our first close in there was March, very, very early March. We dipped our toe in there at the end of February, and we closed below there in March. And from there, it's been a struggle, but it was also a struggle the last time we closed in this red box. And we battled all the way back up. We had this one final hurrah of a move. It was a move back then from 33 all the way up to 48. So for those of you who are OGs on my channel, I made a pretty legendary call at 48K. At that time, it would be easy in retrospect to look back and be like, oh, that's when the market crashed. But that's exactly what I said in every video when we were around 48K, that we were about to have a huge crash. It was ridiculously unpopular to say. I was ridiculed. I was made fun of. It was absurd. But that's what the charts were saying. Men lie, women lie, the charts don't lie. And the popular thing to say at this time was, we're going to 100K, 200K, 300K. But that's not what the charts were saying. So 48K mega crash. We went from 48K down to 17 real quick. And that's what happened after the red box last time. So I just want to state for the record, we're in the red box. We've been in there for many, many weeks. I told you about the red box first many, many weeks ago, and I said, this doesn't look good. we're repeating the exact same patterns. And all we've done since then is just more of the same pattern repeating right before everybody's nose. Except this time, for some reason, everybody's surprised. Oh my God, Bitcoin's crashing. Oh my God, Bitcoin's in the 70s. Hello? Are we going to wake up and look at the facts, or are we just going to hope for the best? In this channel, we're not hoping for the best. Men lie, women lie, the charts don't lie. Let's appreciate the charts. Let's respect the charts, and let's understand what are the charts saying that's going to happen next, because that is the key. So back then, we were waiting for a stochastic RSI cross, right? And we got it after a couple months of no energy. Right? We lost all of our momentum. We stayed down below there for a long time. Sound familiar? And then we had a cross and everybody's like, oh my God. And then price started rising. We literally went from 33,000 up to 48. That is a significant rise in price. And everyone got very, very excited. But we ended up in this red box here where we had a stochastic RSI back down at the same time of getting resistance from our key market structure. And at the same time, we failed to make a higher high. So it turned out to be a failed rally. We got rejected by structure. We got rejected by our moving average. And we had a cross back down in our stochastic RSI, and the floodgates opened and the rug almost pulled from under Bitcoin, and it slipped so fast down to 17,000. Okay? So what are we doing today? Well, we've had no momentum for a long time. We're waiting for a stochastic RSI cross, and we just broke structure here. Something that we broke structure also in the red box last time. So this is nothing new. These are all the warning signs lining up right in unison. The same pattern is repeating from 2021. It hasn't been repeating for 3 days or 4 days or even a month or two. It's been repeating since February 2024. Yeah, it's been repeating right under your nose for more than a year, and still you're not hearing about it. You're not seeing it because it's unpopular, right? What I want you to know is what happens next in this pattern. And more importantly, does Bitcoin have a chance to avoid this catastrophe that could be on our hands? What's the likelihood? Like, is it like a 5% chance that we can avoid this? Or is it like 75%? Is there some clue in the chart that you're looking at right now that could really break this thing wide open? I want to get into those things. Let's talk about first, what is going on with Bitcoin and the crypto markets right now as we're inside of this red box. We've got above our head this moving average. Right now it's at 93. Keep in mind, that's where we rallied up to last time. Does this mean Steve said we're going to 93? Hell no. This is a moving average, so you can see it's starting to fall. Just like it was way up here before at 50 something thousand, and it was pointing down. We didn't rally to 50 something thousand. We only made it to 48 because the moving average was going down. By the way, what moving average is it? It's the 21 SMA. So you go to your indicators and you type in moving average. You pick the one that says simple moving average, and then you go into your settings and put 21. You can go into your settings and put green, and then it will look exactly like this. Now, when you look at it, and we've got this structure broken, we understand the structure was broken before. We understand what is potentially going to happen next. There has to be some sort of stochastic RSI cross. We've got to have it eventually, right? And when it does, that is the thing that could save the day for Bitcoin. That's when this starts getting real, because it's really going to depend on where we're at when that happens and how much further we can rally. And the stochastic RSI has to take us to a new all-time high. At a minimum, our RSI has to take out this prior swing high, which is at almost 80, that's a tall task, right? We just broke key market structure. We're going to see where we confirm, but it boils down to this. Bitcoin remaining above 70K with some sort of significant candle, at the minimum a weekly candle, but more likely like a 2-week, a 3-week, a monthly candle. That's got to close above 70. Any close of the body below that is the nail in the coffin for Bitcoin. Now, so more specifically, this is exactly what happens next, and then we'll get into, can Bitcoin save the day? While we have no momentum, price can easily fall further. It will fall further until we have a stochastic RSI cross back up. When that happens, it's likely price is going to start going up. And it's all going to come down to how long we can have a stochastic RSI cross. The longer, the better. And Bitcoin has to create a new all-time high from that, or the divergence will take over. And furthermore, the RSI has to create a higher high than this 78, or the divergence will take over. The outside chance is Bitcoin just continues this divergence, meaning we could have in the best case scenario, we have a stochastic RSI cross, it takes us to a new all-time high, and we fail to make a new higher high in the RSI. And instead of 2 data points of bearish divergence, we have 3. And maybe they're all 150, 300 days apart. That would be the most ideal scenario, where Bitcoin can see an all-time high and just the bearish divergence continues. Now, how likely is that to play out? I'm going to give you my take here in a moment, but I want to get into specifically what you want to watch to happen next to know which way this is going to swing. We're in this red box. What we need to show we're going to do something dramatically different is we need to close a body of a candle above this green moving average. That would be a sign to the market that, hey, we did not do anything like that in the last cycle. A close with the candle above there would be great. But look for further downside action. That's definitely a possibility until we have a stochastic RSI cross. Now, how about this scenario? Because you could see we've been covering this move now for 9 months, and we're living in it now, and it's still like, man, I hope this doesn't play out. So how likely is that to play out versus how likely is some bullish scenario to play out? The bullish scenario, Bitcoin has to do the following things: make a new all-time high, take out this swing high of the RSI. It's clearly got to get above this green moving average here, and we need the market to hopefully help the altcoins in the process. But right now, as it's lining up, we have to take into consideration a lot of different data points. Bitcoin has had bearish divergence in multiple cycles. This is not the first one. The other times we've had it, it marked the market cycle top, just like it did in 2021. This was not the first time bearish divergence marked market cycle top. There were others. We have to take that into consideration. We also have to take into consideration our shooting star candle. But Bitcoin has a chance as long as it's above structure here at 70. As long as it's above 70, we still have a puncher's chance. Bitcoin can still deliver that knockout blow. It can still shift the momentum as long as it's above 70. So right now, what are the chances? I would say, my honest opinion, and you've heard me talk about this bearish divergence now for a long time, we can't argue these facts. These are overwhelming. Yes, with the pi cycle top indicator hasn't crossed yet. I get that. If you know other charts that clearly mean and show and prove that the top is not in, please leave those below. I want to know what they are. You know, tell me, hey, Steve, on this time frame, you look at this chart, look at this, boom, 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 and here's the conclusive evidence that the top is not in because of XYZ. I would love to hear that. But right now, I would say Bitcoin has to prove itself, plain and simple. We've repeated this pattern for over a year, and it's got to prove that it's not on this pattern anymore. Bitcoin has to step up to the plate, and the only chance it's going to have to do that is the next stochastic RSI cross. So what's the likelihood? I would say right now, unfortunately, it's still more likely that this is going to continue to play out until Bitcoin steps up to the plate and proves otherwise. But there still is a puncher's chance because we're above 70. So I'll give the most bullish scenario a chance, but I would put it at a small chance right now. I would call it an outside chance. It's still a chance, but right now it's just an outside chance until proven otherwise with facts. It's just hard to look at this chart right here. This whole video is about this chart, and it's hard for us to look at the facts here and say, there's a pretty good chance we're going to go to a new all-time high. There's not. With this chart right here, with the facts that we have presented in front of us, it's not looking good. What do you think is going to happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. By the way, the hottest topic right now is debating whether the top is in or not. Everyone's been asking me about my 15 charts. I just want you to know those are going to be inside my new exit plan masterclass, and you will have lifetime access to the charts that I use to decide whether or not the top is in.